to order at whatever it is, 5:30, 5:32. We have the agenda. Does anybody have any changes to the agenda or anything?
Yeah, we do have one change. I had put on there that we were going to request for approval of the general fund expense budget, and the
Yes.
chief would like to table that until December.
Okay.
However, if you want to discuss it at all, you guys are welcome to do that. He did send out a revised version earlier.
Well, we'll see where we are when we get there, what people want to do.
Okay.
Okay, we'll start with the chief's report then.
All right.
Are you there, Brian?
I am. Good evening. I did get a chance to send out the report last week and hoping that you all had a chance to look at it. And I guess in order to keep things moving, I'd be glad to answer any questions about it.
Okay. Commissioners, anybody have any questions?
I do.
Go for it.
I was curious what the LexiPol policy system was.
Me
Or do I
too.
know?
It's a commercial product. Actually, it was a joint effort involving Gordon Graham, who a lot of folks know, and some other folks putting kind of model fire department policies together that you can subscribe to. And part of that product is that they offer training modules for your members on them, and then updates and everything. So we've listened to their pitch before. They've been in business maybe 10 years now, and we listened to it again and evaluated. It's kind of a spendy proposition, so that was about it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I got a couple. Go ahead, Mel.
On page 3, under apparatus and equipment, there's a reference to engine 82 sent to Olympia Collision Center for bodywork repairs due to a minor collision. Can you just brief us on what that's about?
Well, that was something that happened a couple months ago. Maybe Brandon can fill in a little more, but the bottom line was that somebody pulled the truck out with the side door open. So something had to give, and the building won and the truck didn't. So this was finally getting the part in from Pierce and having it installed and paint repaired and so forth.
Okay.
It gave us a reminder to include in training that we always do a walk around our vehicle before we pull it out.
Yeah. What else do you have, Mel?
The follow-up to question that I was bringing up last month as well, on the goal number 1 status report, item number 3 under qualified staffing for BLS aid units. The second bullet underneath that says that current staffing level for station 83 was 90%. But when I look at the reference to staffing levels on the page 2 of the chief's report, the staffing level for 83 for the month was 92%. And the 90% is only seems to be applicable to nights and weekends. And it seems to me that this number that we're reporting on goal number 1 should tie back to both day shift and nights and weekends, and not just nights and weekends.
Yep.
Originally, it was intended to focus on nights and weekends, volunteer staffing, but we can change that.
Well, if that's the intent, that's fine. But I think then just add that to the wording so it's clear, because right now it doesn't seem to tie in.
That'll change in January, but yeah, I can do it for December. So.
Thank you.
Huh?
I had, just as follow-up in the equipment section, it talked about tender 84 out for some time. What kind of a problem is that?
It had something to do with the turbocharger on the engine, but I think it's been fixed because I see it sitting back here. I don't know, Brandon, do you have any additional info on it?
No, not, you're talking tender 84.
Yeah,
Go back and look at Travis's history updates, but I don't recall off the top of my head.
yeah, it had to go down to the Cummins shop it wasn't a Lacey shop, it was a Cummins shop deal. And I'm not quite sure whether it's been resolved or not. I can find out, but
Okay, it just sounded, I mean, the way it was worded, it sounded kind of ominous.
well, it was
Like
ominous.
the wheels were falling off or the engine fell out or something.
Well, they were sprinkling holy water on it, so it was a little bit ominous. So,
Okay,
but I think it found its new form health and it's on its road to recovery, I suppose. So,
Anybody
So-
else?
Yeah, so I'm looking at our staffing levels and I'm seeing on the performance measures 83, it looks like, we're not, it's not being staffed, very often because it's 79% set for EMS and 75 for fire. But I know I know you're having some challenges with people having left and people being hired. So Chief, where are we at in that hiring process with staff?
well, that's what we're going to talk about in the third agenda item.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that. Where's that at?
And we'll also be talking a little bit about that in our exempt meeting after this meeting.
Oh, okay, I didn't see that we were having it. Oh, okay, never mind. Okay, I just didn't read the whole thing. Okay. Sounds good.
Glo, just to follow up on that, the 79%, I think you're looking at the number 3 performance measures.
Yeah,
That's actually the percent of calls that we met response time.
okay,
And, 79% is actually pretty dang good. It's better than what Station 81 had that month.
okay, so that's not the staffing, that's just the call. Okay, so I'm looking at it wrong then.
Yeah, the staffing levels is down on the next page.
Oh, flip page, hang on. Oh, there we go. Okay. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong. Okay.
Did we actually have a Halloween thing at Boston Harbor School this month?
No, but we, traditionally, we've helped with parking, and last year we proposed that instead, in lieu of parking, that we would make a donation of candy, and they were thrilled with that. And this year they requested the same. They didn't actually hold the Halloween event, but they were doing, I think, goodie bags for all the students. And so we provided them with candy and also coloring books and crayons, etc. And they were very pleased with that.
Nice.
So does that mean we're not planning on doing parking at the Halloween carnival anymore?
No, we're out of that.
We are?
Mhm.
Huh.
You,
Okay,
you do what you can do, and they appreciate it.
I don't know if I had anything else. Does anybody else have anything else?
I've got one more. And sorry, I didn't bring it up before. It was on the next page, then I forgot to flip it.
Go for it.
Under goal number 4, the last item, we had an initial plan to do a public survey in this timeframe, and I haven't seen any action on it. I know I've had a little conversation with Brian a couple of months ago, but I'm not sure what the direction is with that now. But I thought it would be timely just to check in on that to see what we're doing.
Well, based on the changed goals that we set for 2021, at least I've determined that we're not ready to do that yet. and we'd be better postured to do it with the approach taken with the new goal for next year. So obviously it probably, well, it won't happen this year, so.
That's fine.
Okay.
Just wanted to acknowledge that.
So basically, we just put it off till 2021 sometime?
Well, we'll have a more proactive approach leading up to that type of a survey that would include, as the new goal for it would be, in helping educate our citizens and helping, and then asking for input once they've been properly given information necessary to be an educated responder.
So then it's a
Well,
way to test how well they are, what we have communicated has been absorbed, how well they've taken in those messages.
That and the fact that once they kind of understand the pros and cons and impacts, they, could probably provide more useful input.
Makes sense to me.
Well. So. We're not gonna, based on the next year's goals, goal number 4, you're splitting up the information you're gonna pass out to the citizens, some in March, some in June, some in September, and some in December. So this is telling me you're not gonna be ready for a survey until 2022.
If that's the way that it works out.
That's a long time to wait to find out what your citizens think. Wow. Anybody else have anything on the chief's report? Well, stuff that's not on the report. Do we have any update on the Insight cell tower site purchase?
We reviewed their proposal. Well, we sent back some confirmation of our interest in negotiating. And I sent off the information to SNUR, and he and Insight are working on the final contract. So I contacted Brian this morning and he hasn't heard back from Insight yet, but we've acknowledged and we're locked into the proposal, including the bonus that would be attached to that, so.
Okay. Anybody else have anything? Okay, we'll move on to the TCOM project.
Right, this morning, I finally received a draft agreement back and sent it off to Keith Fulelling for his first review. I want to, as soon as I hear back comments from him, then I'll pass it on to the board to look at. But it's essentially a typical Brian SNUR agreement. It was about 17 pages, whereas the TCOM one was about 4. So I don't know, maybe Keith fell out of his chair or something, but as soon as I hear back from him with his comments and that, I'll forward it off to the board to look at. But it basically identifies all the terms and everything that we wanted to make sure were included and so forth, so.
Yeah, I got a copy of that draft and I had a bunch of questions, so I guess maybe I'll talk to you tomorrow about that when I come by and maybe sign the minutes or whatever. So.
Not tomorrow. Tomorrow's a holiday. Do it on Thursday.
Oh, tomorrow's a holiday?
Yeah, it is. So Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be fine.
So was I the only one that got this?
Yeah, at this point, it's really in draft form, so.
Okay, then I won't ask any questions on it now.
I didn't want to send this size of a document out more than once.
Okay. Anything else under the chief's report? Okay, we'll move on to the general fund expense budget.
Per your direction last month, I sent out revised numbers and I put some a chart that showed some comparisons between the proposed budget for 2021, our actual expenditures by line item in 2019, the 2020 budget, and then what the 2020 expenditures and revenues to date were as of October. So you've gotten that. I also updated the kind of the high level summary between those budgets and what our strategic, call it strategic plan budget for 2021 was. And then also showed proposed expense budgets for the CNR&R plan as well as the capital facilities fund.
So I noticed that a number of the categories, the proposed budget for 2021 is quite a bit larger than the actual to date or even the budget for 2020. For example, like communications or information and technology, things like that. I'm wondering why we increased a lot of this stuff when we're way down from the 2020 budget to what we spent to date. We're not even not close.
Well, some of it is, this has kind of been an unusual year for some of these areas. It could change and revert back to some of the basic assumptions we made for doing business normally was related to COVID. So some of those things come into play. In a number of these areas, we kind of looked at each item and wondered, looked to see if there were any substantial changes or any changes that we needed to make for budgeting based, for example, communications. We see that we become more and more dependent upon wireless communications, both mobile and in our buildings and that. So, and those have some increased costs. Milt had asked specifically about PPE and a couple of other items. And the answer for the PPE is that we're looking at probably having to replace another dozen or a dozen and a half sets of turnout gear that's aged or worn out, if you will, that were beyond the replacement items that we did in 2017 and 2018. So that's driving a lot of it. Part of the thing is increases in facility items and equipment items are as a result of us paying more attention to them. With the reassignments that we made and having Brent starting to manage the F&E program and then specifically assigning somebody on equipment items and somebody on facility items have highlighted other needs that have been unmet in the past. One key one, as I see it, is facility maintenance costs that in order to really focus more and more on preventative maintenance in the buildings, we're spending more, for example, on maintaining our heating and cooling systems. We are doing more infrastructural work, making sure that the electrical systems are working correctly. In the future, I would see it continuing to expand that now that we have somebody that is pretty much dedicated to facility items for example, preventative maintenance on roofs, exterior treatment like sealing and caulking and painting, sidewalks, parking lots, all of that. So that really drove some of the increases in those areas as well. So, the good news is I think as we spend money in these areas, we can hopefully extend out the life cycle of our assets and maybe even have a positive impact on our overall capital expenditures in the future.
Are a lot of these maintenance items, things going to be done by our people or other people?
A combination, but probably a greater reliance, especially on technical things, through contract.
Okay. What about at the bottom of page 1, it says volunteer recruitment and selection. We've only spent $1,000 this year. Is that because there hasn't been any recruit classes or what?
It's that, and we haven't had any social events to speak of, and like you said, we haven't, normally we budget for 2 recruitment cycles, and we'll barely have 1 this cycle. Maybe Brandon, you could pitch in on that.
Sure, that's the easiest answer is I'm sitting on a stack of applicants right now and we didn't even process them last cycle. So it didn't feel very appropriate to me to spend a bunch of money advertising when we're not even testing. It kind of almost feels like, hey, do you want to come join our team? Well, we're not testing yet. So yeah, we just held back on advertising if we're not doing a session, but we're going to ramp it back up hopefully here next year.
So what about in-kind meals provision that we spent so far this year, just over $7,000, and we plan on budgeting 16,000, which is over double what we spent so far. Why is that going to be so high? I mean, we spent 14 in 2019. I don't know that COVID would have had any effect on this. So why the big drop or why the big increase? Either drop from 19 or big increase to 2021.
Actually, it has the COVID, the shutdown that we've had with the number of, only the crew being on duty, and just being more and more careful about communal meals and things like that. So, one of the things that we need to remember, because we budget it doesn't mean we're going to spend it. So I think that, and it didn't show an increase from the current budget level 2020. So.
Anybody else have any questions?
So I'm looking at the travels and meals and that, and since we're not doing any traveling and we're not doing any meals, so what was our final expenditure for this year on that, since we weren't really able to do any conferences and that kind of thing?
Well, it would show on the to-date balance on the far right column, 2020 to date. We're not at the end of the fiscal year yet, so I couldn't tell you what the total will be for the year.
Okay, okay.
But again, that's reflecting the COVID issue, and
Right.
That could change next year. Hopefully it will.
So basically if we didn't, so we won't know how much was allotted and then how much was actually spent at this point right now. We don't know that yet, right? Is that
Well,
what
you'll know how much was budgeted. You look under the 2020 budget column and it will show what was budgeted for this year.
Yeah.
And in December, we'll have the final number for the year.
Okay, okay. And then will that money just roll over then for the next year?
Yes, it's not like the state, we don't lose that appropriation.
Yeah. So if we're in the same situation as this year and we can't go to conferences and all that, then that money just, I mean, will you just keep it in that fund, or will you take that, because that's extra money in the bank account, basically? Do you then just put it into the reserve fund if we didn't use it?
No, it like we talked about last month, I mean, the funds, anything that's not spent, any cash that's left over, regardless of what it was budgeted for,
Yeah.
goes over to next year, and then it's all mixed together and reappropriated each budget cycle.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, it's not partitioned in that manner.
okay, okay, thanks.
Mhm.
But
Anybody else have any questions?
just to follow up on the general philosophy, it appears that you're budgeting more based on a regular year, as if COVID wasn't here, rather than looking at what were our cost reductions that we had due to COVID this year and adjusting with an assumption that the first half of next year is going to still be impacted by it. You're budgeting assuming that COVID's done, which is unlikely.
Well,
I agree.
true, but then if we don't spend it, we don't spend it. I guess I don't see the problem.
Will that affect the bottom, like what our, how do I want to say this? Will that affect, like if we didn't spend it, then it'll show we have a more positive balance at the end of the year versus going to the negative because it wasn't used. Is that correct?
Sure. I mean, it's like anything else. We have a budget that we set.
Yeah,
And we spend money and in some, frankly, a budget is only a best guess in October, what you're going to be spending in November of the next year. So
yeah.
certain items will be under budget, certain items will be over budget.
Well,
But
I mean,
bottom line, whatever's not spent is rolled over to the next year. We basically look at it as a cash budget, which is a little different than, certainly different than the state does, so.
okay. Yeah, I understand that. I'm just saying that, if we're going to look for, we have to take into consideration all this COVID stuff, but in say 3 years, we have to go out for an M&O levy. People may look at that and go, well, you didn't spend as much money this year. Why are you, needing more money come for down the road is what I'm, that's what I want to say is that when you do the main spreadsheets, it shows what our balance is at the end of the year, where our profit or our loss is or whatever. And if we aren't spending the money, we're going to have a bigger profit left over in a sense. And so we have to take that into consideration when we're going to in future look at an M&O levy because, COVID is obviously directly affecting our budget as far as we're not having necessarily as much expenditures going out. So we're showing we're going to have a little bit more of a profit come the end of the year because we didn't spend, say, the 92,000 in, training and that, do you understand what I'm saying? So we just have to take into consideration these were COVID years. So when we go in future to have to do an M&O levy, people they may just see that bottom number and not take into consideration we had this extra money because of COVID years, not because, we had extra money, kind of thing. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, I guess the bottom line, yes, the bottom line is that when we did our strategic planning, we looked at cash carryover, which is what you're talking about from year to year. That will help us affect to when the timing and the amount of what we'll eventually want to ask voters to approve. But I doubt that they'll worry too much about what a single line item budget and what we spend in. It probably will, for the public, the taxpayer will probably be more bottom line.
Okay.
I doubt that they're going to want to get an integrated reporting of each budget line item.
Okay. Well, but in all, you do a whole big balanced breakdown of a general budget. So you still are going to see that there's, the end total is more money than what we actually spent. So they're going to, well, you got extra money that year, so it's carried over and you still have your ongoing having extra money. So
yeah, so this is pretty much what we did when we did that 2021, 2026 look ahead. And we took the bottom line from each fund, what the effect was, but it was all based on sets of assumptions. So
yeah,
if you've got a year that looks especially low, what you do is you footnote something like that and explain the difference.
okay,
So, and for 20, and whether it's higher or lower.
right.
So, but I think they look primarily at a program level rather than each line item.
Okay. Well, I still want to make sure that we make a recognition that this was a COVID year and that's why the budget might be where it's at. So I just want to say we need to make sure we have that in there. So if people do go look back, because some people will, that we, explains why that is that way. Okay.
Well, if they look at just the current revenue, taxes collected this year versus expenditures this year, then we're going to be overspending. Even though we're showing a balance because we have the carryover. But we're spending more this year on our budget, our projected budget, than we're actually going to bring in this year in tax revenues. And so that's why I think that we should look at just tax revenues, exclude the carryover, because that goes from year to year. Just what we're anticipated to get this year versus what we're anticipated to spend this year, and it'll show that we're in the red.
Okay.
Well, not necessarily in the red. It means that current revenues and cash carryover are both contributing to our funding for expenditures. So if that's not running in the red, running in the red is having a deficit balance, which we don't.
Well, it tells me that we're dipping into prior year's savings in order to meet current year's expenses.
It's not savings, Rich, it's cash carryover.
Well, it's a
We
savings
have
from prior
savings.
years. Never mind.
Well, yeah, and we're also going to be dipping into reserves and some of the money that's been allocated to capital is going to end up getting spent as well.
Well, the capital budget's another one when you look at it that we've got dollar figures plugged into all those sub accounts, and for several years now at least, we haven't spent anything out of those sub accounts, yet we keep putting money into them every year. And then the
Well,
next year we start from zero.
as I explained last month, at this point, those are placeholders for potential costs that we'll hopefully better identify next year and the year after that to more specifically budget. But I'd prefer to have something budgeted and not spend it than not budget and need more money.
I agree.
Okay,
on
anybody
that.
else?
Chief, one last question I had was, what more is going to change on this as we, I assume you're going to come back in December or whenever for a approval. Is there tweaks that are still going to be made based on any new information?
Well, that's why we're having this conversation tonight, to try to get more input from y'all on what we need or don't need. The only one that I would foresee would be based on a decision that we'll make in our next agenda item. But other than that, I think we're fairly close, Mel.
Okay.
I just had one thought that I wanted to share. I thought, Gloria, your questions were good about trying to understand how dollars are carried forward and that kind of thing. But I would, and you're using the language that you're familiar with from your business. You run a
Right.
business and you make a profit. As a
Right.
government entity, we don't make a profit.
Mhm.
And so we just need to be careful with our language. Somebody in the citizenry may pick up on that and say, well, wait a second, what is South Bay Fire Department doing making a profit?
Okay.
We're
yeah.
not, yeah. So you're using
Yeah.
your terminology and that's
Right.
correct for you.
Right.
Anyway, we all need to be careful.
Right. So what would it be then what would be the better term to use on
Well,
that?
it's the cash carry forward
Okay.
as
Okay.
Chief was talking about it. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
right. But
So
anyway,
that, as long as I know what the two mean, this basically the same thing, then I
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
They
Okay.
do. They do. In government anyway, they do.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, filling the bargaining unit employee vacancy.
As we talked about last month, about evaluating the opportunities and or challenges that we face with having a vacancy. We talked about some of the options that I was thinking about at the time. And since then, based on your sage wisdom that you've helped provide me collectively, I engaged with a number of conversations with a number of people, and both Brandon and I have reached out to our operations team and our officers and all of our members and had some pretty good discussion about all this. And then about a week ago, I sent out a message letting everybody know about the choices that I was considering and everything. And then as a result of that, I had some additional good input and conversation and so forth. But when, at the end of the day, what I needed to do, or what I did do, was evaluate what the best advantage that we could have in a decision. And, there's probably some good cases for all of the options, but the one that seemed to have the best benefit to me was creating that new battalion chief position and filling it at this time. And it does a number of things for us. One, it helps us buttress up our battalion chief job. As you are well aware, I think, that we recently had a resignation of Damian Longmire, who was 1/3 of our, or actually 1/4, but 1/3 of our actively scheduled battalion chiefs leave. And so the burden then fell on the 2 remaining, one of which is still on leave of absence, Les Robinette. So we're working the tail off of Chris Ledoux and Derek Hall, who's pulling some shifts, and then Brent pulling some extra shifts beyond his 3 assigned shifts, which is not sustainable, none of which is sustainable. So that's one big consideration. The other is finally being able to have and dedicate somebody to some programs that I don't think are being adequately addressed, because they always end up being sort of other duties assigned. And one of them is as our health and safety officer, who can really begin to, without having to be encumbered by other responsibilities, take that on. And there's a number of initiatives that I wanted to see happen this year that, for a number of reasons, including no champion, if you will, didn't get done. Also, another thing that's very cognizant on my mind is the fact that our EMSO program, or Emergency Medical Services Officer program, is a bit fragile. And we thought we were going to lose Jonathan this spring to a job. It looks like he's probably going to stick around for a little while longer, but if he finds a job that he really likes, he could be gone in a month or less. So that doesn't bode well. And we really do not have anybody that can fill in his shoes, certainly that's volunteer right now. And would be very challenging even for assigning it to a career person. So the expectation was this new battalion chief would at least initially serve as Jonathan's assistant EMSO and be able to perform a lot of the duties that Jonathan needs to get done and doesn't have the time to do. So with all of that in mind, and the fact that a battalion chief can and frequently does act as a company level officer, it seemed to me to be the real pushover, no-brainer part of that decision. So again, with all of that involved, I guess my recommendation would be to have board approval to create that position, if you will, and then pursue filling it through a formal hiring process that's prescribed in the collective bargaining unit, which most likely will include any eligible volunteers that we have and any open competitive applicants that we might get. And I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I have a question. So you mentioned that this new battalion chief position would also be responsible for the health and safety, be the health and safety officer as well, or was that 2 separate things?
It is his rank function would be battalion chief, but like Derek, who is responsible for training, this position would be responsible for the health and safety officer. Yes.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Uh-huh.
Chief,
Okay.
could you just, I don't want to go into great detail, but step us through again, maybe the next level of detail, how that hiring process works? Do the current members, career members, do they get a priority on this in the first stage? How does that how do they fit into this?
My desire would be to run this process exactly the same way that we did our career lieutenant process. So that it's basically, the eligibility is staged 3 ways in the agreement. If there are 3 qualified current members or employees that want to be in the register, that creates a register. And then we proceed from that point.
Okay, so you need 3.
3 eligible career members.
Right, okay.
At this point, we really only have 1 eligible career person. Then it would open it up to volunteers. And if we can basically get 4 or 5, including the career person and volunteers, then that register would be closed. Right now we have, I believe, Brandon, correct me if I'm wrong, of 1 volunteer that's eligible to apply. Now that would indicate that we would then open competitive applications. So we open it up. And so technically what we do is advertise it, open it up for a month to receive applications. There'd be a closing date. The applications then are screened, make sure that they meet all the minimum requirements. And then we would work with public safety testing again to do a module where they do the basic checking of the applications. There would be a testing battery that would be done with different 4 or 5 different subject modules and so forth. And then there would be, which would create a ranking. That list would be brought to me, and generally we would interview, depending on what the list looked like, the top 1 or 2, and then we would make an offer. Then after that, then there's a more extensive background check. They get a physical and psychological test. And of course, they need to advise their current employer that they're leaving if they're not working for our district. So essentially, that's how the process is.
Right. That helps clarify it. I was trying to understand why, how the register process worked and the number that you need. So that helped me a lot. Thank you.
That's what makes it take so long, basically.
So this position is actually going to add a BC if that's what we do, and delete a firefighter, and we're still not going to increase the staffing level, the total staffing level.
As I proposed last time, this would be transferring that firefighter vacancy to a battalion chief, yes.
So we still stay with, well, 15 counting Heidi.
Yeah, whatever the number is, yeah.
Okay.
And the net budget impact is going to be to add roughly 50,000 or so to next year's budget.
Between salary and benefits, yeah.
Okay. Anybody says he wants a request for approval? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve the chief's request to hire a battalion chief and start a register to facilitate that process.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And we'll keep you abreast of the progress. Brandon's already had some preliminary discussions with the testing agency, so.
Well, to me, when I look at this, we're going to add salary into that particular category by increasing the firefighter salary to a battalion chief. That's another reason why I think we need to keep other categories as tight as possible and not just use them to fill, placeholders on these lines. They need to be tight on what we actually anticipate so that we don't just keep increasing the expense lines. So, okay.
Rich, for what it's worth, I would tend to agree with that. I think that it's reasonable to expect that, for an example, we're going to be seeing impacts of COVID at least for the first half of next year, and it would
At
be
least.
to adapt our budget based on that expectation.
Yep. So, okay. The district budget hearing with all the resolutions, that's Heidi. I'm not hearing you, Heidi.
You're muted. There
I'm
you go.
sorry. I sent, later this afternoon, I sent out revisions to the budget resolutions based on the new assessed values that we just received. Are there any questions on any of those resolutions?
Can you, I don't know, I printed this, I thought today, can you read just the dollar figure for the new amount? The assessed value of the district? 2,266,629,163 is what
No,
I have.
it's 2
I mean, 2
million.
billion.
It's actually 2,267,000 or 67,454,597.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. So we're asking to go out for 3,404,373.
Okay, anybody have any questions on that? Do you want to do all three of these together, Heidi, or does it matter?
I think it's fine to do all three together.
Because the first one is 03, and that's the,
3 is the property levy, the property tax levy. 4 is the levy certification. And 5 is the increase ordinance that we're just recognizing the difference in what we're asking from last year, from the previous year.
okay. I'll make a motion that we approve all three of these resolutions.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries.
They don't have a
You're-
thumbs down.
You know what?
Yeah, there should be a thumbs down button. I don't see one.
You can't vote negatively, Milt. Okay,
So
transfer.
the next resolution is to move 275,000 from our general fund into the CR&R. This amount was actually approved by the board when we did the budget for 2020 last year. So we're just formally making the request from the county to move those funds.
Okay. I'll make a motion. We approve the transfer of 275 to the CR&R fund.
I second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Secretary's report.
I sent out the meeting minutes from October 13th and October 19th. I hope you all have had an opportunity to look at those.
Anybody have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
You need a first.
Oh,
I'll
I'll make-
move to accept the minutes as presented.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Warrants.
Are there any questions on the warrants? Nobody has reached out to me to ask any questions, but I'm happy to attempt to answer your questions. So,
you guys, can you hear me?
yeah,
Okay. I did have a couple questions.
okay.
I'm reading my question marks here. There was two things that said US Bank, like number 1254 and 1257. But it doesn't say what those were for. So remind or tell me what
All right,
the,
let me see if I can look that up for you real quick.
Those are the credit card bills, Heidi.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not sure about the expenditures.
I didn't know if it was
themselves.
for food or maintenance stuff or,
The last, if you printed those out, Pam, the last page is a summary of all those.
oh, then never mind. I read the last page. I thought these were in lieu of, okay. I
Yeah,
missed
the last page where it says US Bank credit card, that summarizes those two things.
Yeah, because there's so many line items, we have to do a separate document to identify what all the expenses are because there's not enough availability in the BIAS program to insert all those line items.
And I had another one on 1298. It's for Northwest Water Systems. I
Mhm.
just wondered how often they come in and do that. Is that a monthly fee? Or I mean, for the water quality and bacteria testing? How often?
I believe it is a monthly fee, yeah. And I
Wow.
know it's high. We used to do it ourselves and then they changed the law and we're not allowed to do it ourselves. So we have to hire a business to do it on our behalf because.
Yeah, we have a class 1 water system reading at both fire stations, and the requirements are pretty stringent about that. So that's why we have a certified water system to help us meet all the wonderful state requirements.
Okay,
And
thank you.
that's because the public uses our facilities, even though they're not using them currently, but the mandate was made because of that.
Okay, well, that helps. Thank you.
And the second one, Pam, the US Bank for $3,000.
Yeah.
That's to replace all the appliances that were stolen out of the residence house.
Yeah, okay.
Brian, on 1249, the Northwest Safety Clean. Are those two cleanings, cannot those be done in our district extractor? Why are we paying somebody to clean stuff when we have our own extractor and dryers?
I don't know, Rich, but I think what we've done in the past is when gear is contaminated or when we reissue it, extractors don't do a full required cleaning. Sometimes they have to do something different. So we don't do that with all the gear, but generally it's when it's reissued or if it's been exposed to some potential bad thing. But it's at the exception rather than.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I've got a quick one. Sorry.
Go ahead, Milt.
Going back to the US Bank report, we've got an $880 Adobe Acro Pro annual subscription. What do we use that for?
The chief and myself and Janet, we all have we all use Adobe, and it, like everything else, you can't just buy the software, you have to lease it. That is the annual expense for that, for our account.
Can
And
you
we
just
save money if we pay it annually as opposed to monthly.
right? Yeah, can you just give me a rough idea of what kind of business functions we use it for?
Well, converting everything, all the documents into PDFs and all the editing functions for PDFs, like reducing file sizes and editing any kind of a PDF, that kind of thing.
One of the things that is especially helpful for me is that frequently we receive Adobe documents that we want to edit. So we're able to edit those documents, whereas the regular Adobe, you wouldn't be able to do that. Or we can convert documents to Word or something else as well. So it's really been quite a handy product for us.
Yeah, you can take a PDF, convert it to a Word document, make edits to it, and then go back and convert it back to a PDF again. And you can't do that unless you are using a paid account.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve the warrants as presented.
I have a motion
Second,
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed, motion carried. Health insurance renewal.
So this really is, didn't need to be on the agenda, but because Rich needs to sign off on our renewal and he already came in the office and took care of that, but I put it on the agenda earlier and just to bring it up as an item that we needed approval on, but he went ahead and signed that. And so I processed the renewal for the health insurance. There were no increases at all in any of the costs for that. So same fees this year or next year as for 2020.
Okay. Anything else? Announcements?
No
Anybody have-
announcements that I don't have any announcements.
Commissioners' comments? Anybody? I have two things. First of all, the newsletter that came out, I think that looks really good, Heidi. I think the public will really like that.
Thank you.
And the second thing I have is that given the things about the budget and the dates on the goals and things like that and some of that other stuff, I'm a little disappointed in the fact that the resident program is not moving forward because I don't think COVID should play into that. We have shift people that are already living at the station. The executive staff is at the station. I think once they became part of that, they would be a good family and not to do that. But I think our expenditures are not where they should be. I think some of this stuff that we're planning on spending on the training center, the exterior walls of the facilities, the residents, things like that, I think we need to reprioritize and put back in for budgets and stuff like that. I just have a problem with all this stuff, and so I'm going to be resigning my position at the end of the year. I think it's time for somebody else to move into that position and maybe be more on the same line that everybody else is. I seem to be outvoted lately, and so I will be resigning effective December 31st.
Oh,
Okay. Follow up.
oh, was it you that went to, that was also on the fire department webinar with Schnur? I know someone else was on that, that we watched on the 21st of October.
I was on that. Brian was on that. Heidi was on that. Brandon was on that.
Well, there was a
I don't-
lot. I thought there was just two of us. So, okay. I
Yeah.
just didn't know how the information was being disseminated through the others if there was only two of us, but it sounds like there was quite a few.
In years past, sometimes it gets disseminated, sometimes it doesn't. Whoever hears it, and the rest don't seem to get it because the handout only goes to the person that registered for the class and did it that way. So
They did have a video though, I think that.
yeah, the video's out there.
So if anybody wanted to see it, I don't know if it went to everybody or if it got shared. Anyway, I
I-
just wanted to bring that up, but
I'm not sure that video can be forwarded though, when it's on your email, because you signed up with your email address. I'm not sure that can be forwarded to any
Yeah.
other email address.
okay. I'd have to look at how it was written. but-
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Review and follow up.
Rich, I'm sorry, I had a question. And first off, I just wanted to say that I'm sorry to hear you're resigning. I'm not entirely surprised, but I just want to say you'll be sorely missed.
Yeah.
Well, it'll give you an opportunity to promote or, appoint somebody that will then be the incumbent when it comes time to file for election, and that'll give them an opportunity to be at the top of the list. And by appointing somebody, then you may not get somebody else running that you don't want running. So, if you know what I mean. So,
Well,
And
thank you for everything that you've done. I don't know how to think about the fire department without you in front of it. It just have been the
it's
fire
been a
department.
long time. It's
And,
probably time.
I would second basically your thoughts and comments there, Milt. You know, that's a significant amount of time that Rich has put into fire department business, and his life has been a big part of the life of the fire department. So, you know, thank you. I'm sure we'll have some opportunities here to do more public kinds of activities. I sure hope we can figure out something to do that with that. But yeah, it's definitely a significant moment. And thank you, Rich.
You're welcome.
Yeah, yeah, same here. I feel like I've learned a lot from you, and I think we have some big shoes to fill because you have been a big input of information for a lot of us and teaching us, you know, what we need to look for and be aware of when we're making decisions for the public and the department. So thank you for everything you've done.
Yep, you're welcome.
Yeah, and you told me you were going to wait 2 years, so I thought I was going to get to suck all that out of you before you left.
Well, I had a change of heart. Sorry.
Sorry to hear that, but hopefully there's good things for you in the future.
Well, I have no other hobbies, if that's what you mean.
I've got one other follow-up question that's unrelated. I wanted to just check to see, usually in December, we have a holiday gathering and have a big spread for everybody. And it's I think an important social event and one of those things that brings the full department together, including career volunteers and management and the board and so forth, and Santa Claus too. And I recognize that life is a little bit different this year, but I'm wondering, have you guys thought at all about that? And do you have a plan for how to approach that?
We do have a plan. We are something we're going to be providing to all our members. But we're not going to be getting together in a social way. But we do have a plan for Christmas, and we also have a plan for the awards banquet that's traditionally held in February. Currently, we still have a tentative date that is reserved with the Red Lion, but we're not holding our breath that we're going to actually follow through on that. So we have a backup plan.
In fact, I had an update too, if I can just have a minute on giving a little more information on that. So what we're looking at doing is we're having a video made. We're working with South Puget Sound Community College, their videography team, and we're going to have an awards banquet slash kind of a little entertaining thing in the beginning, but it's mostly going to be interviews with members. So on December 9th and 10th, we've got our video crews that'll be coming into the station, and I'm going to be getting the word out. The details aren't all out yet. I haven't released it yet, but we're just locking up now. And what we're going to try to do is definitely get all of our officers to make sure they don't camera shy away, but as many other members as are willing to come in, do an interview, and then we'll have essentially it'll be a little update from the chief. And part of what I was bringing it up to you all today is hopefully we can get at least one commissioner, if one of you would be willing to pop in one of those times and kind of speak for the board. We give you a month to think about what kind of message and what do you want to say, and think about maybe if you want, a lot of them are, do you want them to ask a particular question, then they ask the question and then you're prepared for it, or if you just have a message you want to relay, you could do that. But essentially it'll be kind of an intro of a message from the commissioner and the chief and myself, and we'll kind of roll it into interviews with different members in the department. And then also we sent them off our videotape of, well, Doug, you probably remember, but there was an old video, the training video of South Bay, 20, 25 years ago, some time ago. And there's a few fun little videos where they did what I call the clown car fire engine, where everybody's coming out. And with any luck, we're going to try to recreate that, but with a modern time, a 2020 version of that. And then we're going to show, so they're taking, it's a VHS tape. We're going to have to take it, put it digital. So we'll have a digital copy of it too, which we get to save. And then maybe splice out that little one. In my mind, I'm thinking on one side, rotate the members then, and then a 2020 version of the members rotating through now. So Doug, I'm going to put a phone call out to you. I got a special little idea that I'll chat with you one-on-one, get offline and get a little detail on how that would be. Since I think we're one of the few people, I believe, that might potentially be in both videos.
Yeah, I think maybe me and Ben Dickey.
Ben Dickey, yeah, good call. I forgot he would have been there too. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, then maybe we'll have to do a special little thing on for both of you guys. Anyway, that'd be kind of the entertaining factor, and then it'll sort of roll into our our firefighter and or annual awards winners. We just had our operations meeting. We've selected our firefighter, EMT, and officer, rookie of the year, all the awards for that, and we'll have to do that kind of in a virtual type of setting. So it'll be essentially a video where we announce the winner, and then but we're going to keep it a secret as to who the winners are. So we're gonna have to be a little bit tricky on getting the interviews out of the people who don't even know that they've won. But then it'll come spliced together, and essentially that'll be for our awards banquet. And then Chief was recommending that maybe we're looking at still having a one particular night, maybe the night of the awards banquet could be a Zoom video where we all kind of get to at least say hi, kind of like on this might be, but just many more boxes. We could play that video as sort of the release of the information, but then the video would be saved digitally. We could send it and send anybody else could watch it thereafter. So, and then of course, we'll still have the annual prizes and presents and all the gifts and some handout stuff. So still working on that, but even though we can't gather up, we don't want to lose sight of the fact that we want to recognize our people, have some camaraderie, and then still have some kind of acknowledgement of each other. So.
That sounds good. I appreciate it. That's really important stuff to do, and it's hard to do in this time. But I think people recognize that and appreciate any effort along those lines.
Good. We'll try. So we'll see if any one of you want to be the volunteer spokesperson. Doug, if that's you, I think I'm gonna have you come in anyway. But if somebody else wants to wear a commissioner hat, Doug can wear his historian hat, however you guys want to do it. But that'll be the 9th or the 10th would be the two times I'm going to be scheduling people in. So if the board wants to nominate somebody to come be the face of the board.
Just Rich, since it'll be his last year.
Not me.
You're our chair, and that's part of the job. Is spokesman.
I'm nominating Rich too.
You're the one dressed in festive colors. So
Rich, I heard you say it doesn't take place until December 31st, and this is December 9th. So I guess we're kind of on that hook.
And when are you doing these?
The 9th or the 10th. Those are the two dates the camera crew will come in.
At the Station 81?
Yes. One of the shots. So we're going to try to get some 83 stuff too, but location to be confirmed, but those are the two dates we're looking at.
Okay. Well, send me an email or something. Tell me when, where, and all that stuff.
I'll
Yeah.
remind you.
And what to wear.
Sure. Yeah. Once I have more details, I'll be communicating out with everybody as to their time. And
Wear your Bigfoot shirt.
I could do that.
I think you should wear a Santa Claus outfit.
I don't have one of those.
Oh, we could find one for you. I have a client that has one. I do his beer for him.
The department owns a Santa Claus costume.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, anything else under comments, review and follow-up?
Well, basically, I see three things. One, we will continue to work on the agreements for Insight Wireless for the easement agreement and the site use agreement with TCOM. And as those become, you'll be seeing copies of those agreements because you'll need to approve them eventually. So still working on that. We'll continue to work on the proposed 2021 expense budget. And again, still would like input from everybody until next month. And then we'll keep you posted on the process for recruiting and hiring of a new battalion chief. I think that's all I see on the list right now.
Anybody else have anything? Heidi, did you have anything else to add to that?
Well, I see that we had a request on the chief's report to include nights, weekends, and days in the numbers.
Okay,
And other than that, I think the chief captured it all.
okay. If nobody else has anything, then we will adjourn this meeting at 6:40. I have 6:43. Is that what somebody else has? I don't know. And then, so I don't know if we'll go into the labor discussion. I don't know, is Dan on here? Dan would hang up at this point.
Hey, Dan.
I guess not.
Oh, there he goes.
Okay, then we'll just, labor issues discussion. That's up to you. That's yours, Brian.